Welcome to round 4 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast for the week of February 8th. I'm Terry Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Haleko.
Hello.
And Nicole Eridix.
Hi there.
As moms of teens and young adults, we've survived those little kid days, yet we're still rethinking the decisions we've made all through our kids' lives and worrying about what's going on right now. Today's Thursday, which means it's time to give into our obsessing. And today we're obsessing about other people's problems and that feeling of wanting to swap them for our own. What problems have you seen lately, Catherine, that you would like to swap for?
It's not necessarily that I can see them and think that they sound great. It's just that
that you want them to stop whining.
No, it's just that I don't like the ones I have, so I would like to change them for something else. And I know that this is a very poor idea and bad strategy, but yet
be careful what you wish for, I think is the operative phrase.
Yes, and I still persist on well, if I only had that person's situation, I'm sure their life is so great.
Right.
And I know, it's one of those things where in your brain that this is very silly and very dumb, but I still can't help myself.
Well, this is why we watch TV, right? It's to see people with worse problems than ourselves and go, well, my problems don't look so bad.
Right. Yeah, I guess so.
For that.
I think I just look around, and maybe it's like a social media thing, where, of course, people don't post the bad stuff.
Right.
So then I'm like, they just seem to have everything working out for them. And, could we just trade places for a little bit? So yeah, this is my unhealthy obsession at the moment. So you guys need to talk me out of it, I guess.
Unhealthy, but very human. I think it's natural to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's definitely a part of the experience. Looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right. Grass being greener elsewhere kind of thing, for sure.
Right. Trying to remember when my kids were younger, I may have felt some of that because they were having such struggles in school and socially and behaviorally, and, other people just fretting about some silly, typical kid thing would be like, I don't know that I wanted to swap with them, but I'm like, you don't know,
Right. Exactly.
You have nothing to complain about.
Yeah.
But I remember in the early days after we adopted our kids, I think I've mentioned here before, I was on an email list server of parents who'd adopted from Eastern Europe back when that was social media, was emailing with strangers. And there was so much of that going on then that, it's like we all had huge challenges, but it's like whose challenge was the most challenging? You think you have it bad. I have it so much worse. Do you have this going on? And I was able to stand away from it pretty much, but I don't remember if it made me laugh or it made me cry exactly because it got quite heated, but it's
probably
like
both.
everybody's unhappiness feels to them like the worst possible thing, but there's always somebody who's worse off. And, but we all have down days. We all have times when we want to say this is hard, and to have somebody say, oh, I'd love to have your problems. Listen to my problems. It's like, well, I'm very sorry for your problems, but my problems are my problems and they're meaningful to me.
Mine still cause me grief.
Right now I try to keep telling myself, when I'm looking at my kids and their jobs aren't exactly where I'd like them to be, and their, friendships are a problem and all of that. But then I think, they could be going out every night drinking. They could be taking drugs. They could be in a terrible relationship, and I would not be able to do anything about it. This is pretty nice. I'm good. Excellent. It's very helpful. I'll take everybody just being home watching screens at night.
Yes.
I'll worry about that other stuff later.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that people need to be more open about their problems so that...
Oh, goodness.
What's the
I
answer?
would argue against that. I understand that there is an argument for that as well. But does anybody really want to hear it? In the macro sense of, helping people unburden themselves and being compassionate to other people. Of course, we all want to do that. But really, when that person is in your living room, do you really want, well, people aren't in living rooms anymore. When you're on a Zoom chat with that person, do you really want to hear it? You probably don't. You don't want to hear this thing, though. You also don't want to hear about how great things are for people.
Right. That's the thing.
Right.
I don't want to hear your problems. I don't want to hear your triumphs. Let's just talk about the weather, shall we?
Right.
There's a lot of snow this week. I mean, that's why people are getting so much into politics. It's like, it gives us something other to be mad about than our own problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Nicole? You were looking to swap? You looking around for people to trade with?
I think I definitely had more of that when my kids were in school. Especially because the school system, it's just not aligned with real life.
Oh, I hear you, sister.
So I had a lot of things are going so much better for that person. Or that person's going to get into a good school, or that person is, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And now that they're both out of high school and they're charting their own paths, I don't see that as much. Like, I don't feel that as much anymore.
Uh-huh.
And then in terms of myself, yeah, there are certain things. I look at other people and go, oh, I wish I could do that job.
Oh, yeah.
Or I wish I could live there. Or, yeah. So I do have those kinds of things. It doesn't consume me, but in a way, I mean, certainly the job thing. I think the job thing right now is kind of more like, I wish I had those skills. I wish I had that degree. I wish I was in that position. I think that's kind of where I am right now. So those are kind of my big things. Do you guys feel like that about jobs?
I don't know that I've ever felt that professionally. I've done such a wild array of things that, if I'm tired of what I'm doing, I just go and do something different. And up until now, when nobody wants to hire me, I've pretty much been able to do that. But I have freelance work now that I like. I mean, there was probably a time in my life where I wanted to write the great American novel, and I was jealous of people who were having success at that sort of thing. Or, I wanted to write certain types of magazine articles, and only famous people were getting to write them, and I resented that. But in terms of, I'm way past that now, and pretty happy with, what I got. So that was I don't think I followed a very typical professional path, and I tried a bunch of different things. So maybe that's why I don't really think that way. Usually I left things because I was bored and I wanted to do something else. So it's been interesting. It's my own little meandering. How about you, Catherine? Have you felt that sort of professional envy?
Sometimes I have. If it's seeing someone who I know is not as capable as I am doing something. And, maybe I never actually wanted specifically that job or that type of job, but I'm like, oh, come on. Like, that is who's doing that? Like, that's not cool. I feel that way about children's books, because as we might have talked about, I have a couple of manuscripts that I've written and I've submitted them and they haven't gotten anywhere. And then I look at some of the absolute garbage that does get published, and that makes me mad.
That would be annoying. I could see that.
Yeah. So that kind of thing can irritate me, let's just say. But some of it, just the kind of thing where, certain jobs are a lot more about like personality or networking or whatever than skills. And that can be frustrating if you're not the kind of person that is schmoozy like that.
Right.
That is true.
Which I'm not.
Yeah.
So.
Or even just to have had the opportunities, right? Like sometimes I think, if I had all of my student loans paid off or if I had my education paid for me, then I would have started off in life at a different place, or I would have done things differently. I don't know, like that's all like retrospect kind of things, but I do look a lot back at the past and think, well, if we had done this differently, like so-and-so did, or...
That is not a productive line of thinking.
No.
I'm not saying I don't do it myself, but that cannot never end well.
No, it doesn't.
Because, you can never go back and see, because it might have led to something bad in a different way.
Yes. I do have to remind myself of that.
What I try to tell myself. It probably would have been worse.
Yeah, that is true. Well, I wouldn't be where I am right now if that was the case. If I had done things a lot differently, then I wouldn't be here podcasting with the two people that I probably talk to the most in my life.
You'd have had us podcast that people actually listen to. A fabulously successful one instead of
You think?
this little grassroots effort right here.
I wouldn't have known anything about
swap.
podcasting if I hadn't met you, Terry.
You're the one who hit me
Was
up
I the
and
one
said,
that-
"Do you want to be on a podcast?" You started me in podcasting.
Was that it?
Yeah,
Was that me?
out of the blue. Somebody I did
that
not
me?
know. You were going to do a podcast, and you wanted, for some reason, me to do it with you.
That was pretty random, wasn't it?
It really was.
But what was even more random is that you said yes without knowing me.
I enjoyed listening to podcasts, sure. But I think I definitely had a great deal of, when we started, going, what have I gotten myself into? Do I have to do this? Could I say no now? But
No,
look what happened.
You stuck it out. See, and I think that we're exactly where we need to be right now, except you could use another couple million listeners.
We would like to swap with those podcasts
Yeah, I
that
do
have
have
big
podcast
listenership.
envy.
We're envious.
Have to admit, that's one area where I wish that things were a little bit different, but who
But you
knows?
know what? If we had the pressure of lots of listeners, then we'd have to actually say stuff that was, meaningful and well thought out. And who wants that pressure?
I know, this just feels more like we're sitting down for coffee, but
That's right.
Let's just keep
We'd
it
have to
that way.
pay an editor who knows how to make it sound good.
oh dear. Well, I'm enjoying it, so
Yes.
we'll just,
That's all that matters.
that's all that matters, folks.
But still, you could get more listeners. Tell your friends.
Okay. Well, that's it for today's Round 4. Tune in tomorrow when we'll share our roundabout roundup of things we've been using or enjoying lately that we think deserve a shout out. Find all our episodes at parentingroundabout.com and talk back in the comments there, on our Facebook page or on Twitter, where you'll find us at Roundabout Chat.